This is an ABC podcast.
G'day, it's Clint Jasper with you. Thanks for joining me as we head out with our reporters exploring a big country. This week, we're joining tourists getting a taste of the tropics on a brewery and distillery tour in far north Queensland. We'll visit a rural property that's become a refuge for birds and butterflies. It's all the work of an award-winning wildlife cinematographer who, after years of travelling the world making nature documentaries, is embracing the natural world at home. And we'll find out how a station in WA's Gascoyne region is getting a name for their gourmet goat pies. It's all part of a plan to get more people to give goat meat a go.
Well, I've been on an absolute mission to prove that it is a very versatile meat. My taste testings these days are generally just a pulled shoulder so that people can taste the meat. Essentially, you can do anything with the meat. It's more of a slow cook with moisture because it doesn't have the intramuscular fat that other red meats do. Make it a really good, healthy red meat to eat.
We'll meet the goat farmer turned pie maker very shortly. But first, we're headed to South Australia's Riverland region, where a long-time viticulturalist is trying his hand at growing a different type of fruit. In an effort to diversify, he's ripped out rows of grapevines and is replacing them with mulberry trees. And he's hoping a new generation of Australians will discover the forgotten fruit. Jessica Schremer has the story.
When South Australian viticulturist Peter Sabo wanted to diversify away from wine grapes, he looked to what was already growing on his property.
I work in a winery, all our investments were in vineyards, and that posed a real problem when we had the downturn in the viticulture industry. And so to improve my risk, we decided to diversify. And so one of the reasons is that we've got a really big mulberry tree in the backyard. And when my wife and I first met, we didn't have much money and we wanted to take the kids on a holiday to Queensland. So in the September school holidays, we all picked mulberries and we set them off the market and we made enough money to send us on holidays. And that sort of lit a fire in us.
Since then, Peter has pulled out 4 acres of grapevines to plant rows of mulberries on his own custom-made trellis system. And rather than hand-picking each individual berry into punnets for fresh fruit sales, he has come up with an automated way of picking the fruit.
I modified the grape harvester so I can harvest mulberries. And then after I finish the mulberries, I change it back to be able to harvest grapes. So I sort of spread that cost across my 2 businesses. And so tractor, harvester, all the bins, and then in the packing shed, we've got specialised equipment for sorting. We'll end up producing 50 tonnes off of the property, probably 40 tonnes next year and 50 tonnes a year after. So it's a fair old amount we'll be producing. It's quite mind-boggling when you see a bin full of mulberries. It's not like in a punnet, it's a whole bin. It is quite astounding when you watch them.
Hello, I'm Jessica Schremer. I'm visiting Peter's hybrid mulberry farm and vineyard at Kingston on Murray in the Riverland region of South Australia. While mulberries are a common fruit in Asia and the Middle East, in Australia they're an unknown fruit to some and a distant childhood memory to others.
Almost every person I speak to who's come to the farms tells me a story of their grandma's mulberry tree and picking mulberries and getting a dirty face, or grandma's mulberry jam. So there is a real history to it, and people are really interested in the tree and the fruit, and they just got a real sense of what their grandma used to do.
The innovative farmer is determined to conserve the berry's history. Once all his fruit is harvested, bin loads are trucked into the on-farm shed, where the berries are processed, packed and frozen, ready to be shipped to artisan producers and food manufacturers across the country. Kangaroo Island's iconic distillery was one of the first to use the vibrant berries in a gin. Distiller Charlie Schmidt says securing enough mulberries quickly became a challenge.
John and Sarah, to my knowledge, and going through the records, started about 10 years ago. And the batches they were doing were very small, only using 3 or 4 kilos of fruit at a time, and only producing 10, 20, 30 litres of gin at a time. And so over the last 10 years, that's grown, and it's been more of a seasonal release and limited release up until now, where we've been able to secure enough mulberries to do it almost year round. Now we're using 4.5 tonnes of fruit a year and producing 9,000 to 10,000 litres and 13,000 plus bottles a year. And so a lot. Back then when it was all small batches, you could source that from the island and locally grown trees pretty easily. And now there's just not enough fruit on the island to be able to sustainably do that. So we look to the Riverland because it's South Australia, and if we can't source Kangaroo Island, South Australia's next best thing. So we go to Peter, and he supplies the majority of our fruit now.
To craft the perfect flavour, the fruit needs to be picked at the right time.
Level of ripeness where it's not overripe and so soft it's falling apart, but also not where if you don't pick it too early and it comes a lot of tartness and bitterness across. So there's that fine line between the two where it's just right. Our gin, I guess, it's done in a slow gin style, so it's a lower ABV, and I guess what you'd expect with a mulberry gin to be quite sweet, whereas ours isn't. It's more refreshing and it sort of speaks for itself. So it's just a natural flavour of the fruit mixed with our gin, and that's it.
While distillers are busy crafting spirits, artisan jam maker Amanda Penno preserves the flavour of the colourful berries in a jar here at the Adelaide Farmers Markets.
The mulberry jam flavour is a really special and unique flavour to mulberries, and the people that have had mulberries in their childhood absolutely love it because it brings back a lot of memories of their childhood. And I think doing it the way we do and keeping the mulberry flavour as intense as we can really is what people are looking for, and it's hard to find mulberry jam, so a lot of people get very excited.
But working with the fruit can be challenging.
Mulberry jam is very annoying to work with in that I have to wear gloves obviously when we do it, but it can take just a tiny berry that comes off of the mulberries to get onto the bench, and you'll just get a humongous bit of stain coming through.
Besides the mess, there is another hurdle the artisan jam maker had to tackle.
The stem of the mulberries goes through the fruit, so it's quite hard to extract the stem and make the jam without leaving any of the stems in there. So it took quite a process to get the stems out and get the fruit how we wanted to, and we tried different varieties and adding different things, but doing the straight mulberry with no apple or anything else, just the mulberries and the sugar is definitely the best honesty to the mulberry flavour.
Back on farm, grower Peter Szabo is already thinking about other produce the berries could go into.
We've only really just scratched the tip of the iceberg. We haven't even got into ice creams or yogurts or things like that. And so there's such a diverse, I think the opportunities are immense really.
Looking back, he thinks taking the risk to diversify was worth it.
It's meant a great deal to me and to my wife. We've really not so much put our neck on the line, but we did take out 4 acres of grapevines that were producing quite well as a bit of a gamble, and so that is a bit of a gamble, but it has paid off.
Things are looking a little different at Meadows Station in Western Australia's Gascoyne region.
Currently on top of the hill overlooking the feedlot with the clay pan adjacent, full of water, which is very nice. It's not something we see very often. And lots of green grass.
G'day, I'm James Liveris. I'm here with Chris Heim on her property about 800 kilometres north of Perth. This country is known for its long dry periods, but recently, good rain has greened up the region.
I have not experienced a year like this. We've only been here 16 years, so not in the last 16. The flood year was good, but this has just been phenomenal. We've had continuous follow-up rain the whole way through. There's an awful lot of relief, and the business decisions are where can we source some more stock and make use of what we've got.
Chris and her husband Tim run sheep and cattle here on Meadows Station, and they also trap and catch rangeland goats and fatten them up in their feedlot.
We're now standing in the feedlot at Meadow. We've got our processing yards next to us with a mob of goats that are getting ready to go south in the yard with us.
Can you tell me what got you into goats?
Well, they were here, and so we were just harvesting them annually and sending them off to market. Got to thinking that it was a resource that was underutilised really, and so I just started playing around with a few bits really.
But it was a gamble that would pay off in spades. Chris and her partner Tim now successfully run a goat operation on their property in the Gascoyne region, putting through about 25 goats a kill once a fortnight and for a pretty good price.
Goat prices have been phenomenal, up as high as $10.20. I think it's sitting around about $9.60 at the moment.
If you went back maybe like 10 years or at its lowest, what would a normal price look like for a goat?
Oh, look, we were looking at an average price per head of around about $25. We're probably looking at around about $150 these days.
Wow.
So they're worth looking after.
As well as selling their goats for meat, Chris has branched out into a side business, cooking up goat meat in pies. While Chris is fast earning a reputation for her goat pies, she says it developed almost accidentally after she started preparing meal packs from local produce for grey nomads that were passing through the nearby Wooramel station.
I'm not a chef. I just happened to nail a good pie. Completely by accident, really. Never even made a pie until about 6 years ago. I was sending some meal packs next door, one of them being a Moroccan goat curry, so I had a range of meal packs. So I was trying to do a range of cuisines and utilising different meats. So we had pork, chicken, beef, but at the same time I was using local produce from town to combine with that where possible. Yeah, so that's how that started. I had the meal packs going next door and went to Gascoyne in May festival and thought that I would, well, Tim had brought a pie maker. So I thought I would take that with me. So I was making pies to order. Anyway, rest is history, really. I hadn't really thought that one through in terms of how much Aussies love their pies. It was just a way of getting people to try what I had in my meal packs.
And it's grown a lot.
Yep, significantly.
How popular is goat meat now? Like, people, I think, back in the day think it's only something that could be in a curry, but it's not really the case, is it?
Well, I've been on an absolute mission to prove that it is a very versatile meat. My taste testings these days are generally just a pulled shoulder so that people can taste the meat. Essentially, you can do anything with the meat. It's more of a slow cook with moisture and that's where the health benefits of goat come in. It doesn't have the intramuscular fat that other red meats do, hence the need for some moisture in the cooking process. But its protein level is slightly higher than lamb and beef. Certainly iron, selenium, low in saturated fats make it a really good, healthy red meat to eat.
Chris Hyam from Meadow Station, about 800 kilometres north of Perth, where she's catching rangeland goats and baking their meat into pies. She shared her story with reporter James Liveris. You can read more on that story on the RN homepage, abc.net.au/RN. Just look for A Big Country under the Programs tab. I'm Clint Jasper, and still to come, we'll meet a wildlife cinematographer who's reflecting on his long and successful career from his New South Wales property, where he's built a refuge for wildlife. And we'll join the tourists raising a glass to the flourishing craft brewing and boutique distilling scene in far north Queensland.
Everyone's really happy. Like, they enjoy the beers, they enjoy the stories of the brewers, they love the personal experiences. They get to meet the people behind making the beers and the gins and vodkas and so on. So it's a true local experience, and I think people appreciate that.
In far north Queensland, Conrad Borovisky is giving visitors to the region a literal taste of the tropics, one frothy glass at a time. He's running guided tours showing off some of the region's microbreweries and distilleries. It's a pivot for this tourism operator who, prior to COVID, had a business that catered solely for international tourists.
The tourism industry's gone to the next level, and just people have created amazing new products and just innovated in really cool ways to come up with offerings that suit the domestic market, new ideas, and they're innovating to just offer something that the domestic travellers will enjoy and that will showcase our amazing region.
And somehow beer and far north Queensland has created a perfect match.
Yeah, I mean, there's some amazing breweries up here. There's some amazing distilleries. I mean, all the breweries are creating awesome product. The distilleries are in funky locations. They're creating unique tastes. They're obviously competing with each other, but at the same time, I think they're all working together. Everyone's supporting each other, and I love that. I love that about the industry, and it's really nice to see.
G'day, I'm Charlie McKillop, and I've joined Conrad today to see how these tours work. Naturally enough, first stop is the bar.
My name is Morgan, and I'm the head brewer at Coral Sea Brewing Company. Yeah, most people are really excited when they sort of find out about the bar, I guess, because we're a little bit hidden away, so without someone there to guide them, they may not find it themselves. See their faces light up when they step inside and they realise what's down this nondescript alleyway.
What kind of feedback do you get? I mean, how do your beers stack up, I suppose, to the beer connoisseurs that are seeking out this experience?
Well, obviously they all tell me that our beer is better than anyone else's they've ever tried. But no, I mean, they love it. Obviously, they're looking for something that's brewed locally, that has, sort of a unique taste to it, trying to do a tropical sort of tropically inspired beer. So yeah, being able to try that in cans, people are really happy, really excited by it.
What does it add to the tourism offering? I mean, you might not think that breweries are going to be on the, the promotional boards or the brochures that people are handed when they arrive at the Cairns airport, but how important is this kind of experience?
Yeah, obviously Cairns has a lot to offer in terms of the tourism industry. Obviously we've got the reef, the rainforest, all the rest of it. But sometimes people just want to have a day off out of the water and being able to actually experience some of the cool things that this little city has to offer. Yeah, it's really special.
I know from my own experience when I've travelled to wine regions, for example, then when I come home, I'm looking for those labels. I'm invested in their stories and want to try and continue to support them. Do you see a similar pathway for beer, or is your relationship with customers more short-term?
I mean, I'd like to think it's a long-term thing, but yeah, I think you're right. Like being able to actually meet the people that make it, and then go home and find their product on the shelf at your local bottler, it would be a huge factor for us. And obviously everyone else involved in that process as well. The tour operators, the tourists coming around, they get to have a cool experience, and then hopefully open their eyes to some different products that are out there.
My name is Belinda Tonkin, and I've come from Newcastle. We're here on holidays in beautiful Cairns because it's cold in Newcastle and it's my husband Chris's birthday.
Happy birthday, Chris!
Oh, thank you.
I actually Googled it and I found Red Balloon, and they had this tour package on their site, so I booked it in for my husband's surprise, and we've had a great day.
And so far, is it getting the thumbs up as an idea for your birthday?
I am very, very happy.
What was it about the idea of a brewery tour? I mean, you could do anything in far north Queensland.
I think because we're both small business owners ourselves, and just seeing how people run their businesses, the back the scenes, like how they're actually set up and what got them started, what their passion is, that triggered me. But my husband does love craft beer, so that was what excited me to book it in for him.
Are you attracted by the idea of drinking local beer, eating local food? Is that something that ticks a box for you?
Absolutely. We had it as a free day. We found some local e-bikes that we could take on tour. We went up to Barron River Hotel. We found along the way, totally local. And it seemed so right to just drop in, have a meal, have a beer, mix with locals. And I think that's what appealed with this tour. It was about the local distillers, the local brewers.
That localism does seem to be driving a lot of people. How do you think you'll remember Cairns when you go away from your holiday here?
The heat. It's been fantastic. It's so cold back home.
We're watching double-barred finches, red brows, and chestnut finches.
While he may have travelled the world capturing footage of wildlife around the globe, these days Jim Frazier is most content right here, observing the native species on his rural property on the New South Wales mid-north coast. Hello, I'm Emma Siossian. I'm here with Jim on his property just outside Taree. At 80 years old, Jim has lost none of the passion for nature that's fueled a prestigious career as a wildlife cinematographer, including working alongside Sir David Attenborough, making nature documentaries. Today, Jim is taking me on a tour of this property where he's spent years creating a refuge for birds and butterflies.
So we planted hundreds and hundreds of different trees and butterfly attracting plants, and it's worked a treat. I've recorded 58 species of birds here and about 30 different butterfly species. In the summertime, the place is abuzz with butterflies and birds. It's just a place of peace and quiescence. I just love it here. I never want to move from here.
Jim is humble about his achievements, which include a raft of award-winning documentaries, the invention of groundbreaking lenses, an Oscar, an Emmy, an honorary doctorate and an OAM.
I've had many extraordinary experiences. When you travel the world, you're exposed to different cultures, different people's attitudes, but always with me it was being aligned with things natural and wildlife. And that was my goal, was to try and put on film very often very difficult subjects. And then I got called in to do all sorts of strange things. I got a reputation out there because of my different approach, I guess.
Jim says his cinematography career began unexpectedly through an association and friendship with author and naturalist Denzi Klein, whom he met in the 1960s. They made an award-winning film together about spiders, which impressed the BBC and opened doors.
She said, I want to make a film about spiders and I want to call it Aliens Among Us. And so I went up to her place night after night after night filming spiders, and I learned the ropes of cinematography on the run. When it was finished, Denzi got the idea to send it to the BBC and they just went ape over this film and it won lots of awards. They said, by the way, we're just embarking with David Attenborough on a big series called Life on Earth. And I said, who the hell's David Attenborough? He wasn't all that known then. That was back in the late 70s. So we spent 3 years working on that project for them and they flew us all over the world.
In a bid to make his life easier in the field, Jim started tinkering with lenses. It led to the creation of the Panavision Fraser lens system that revolutionised the film industry, allowing the foreground and background of an image to be in focus at the same time. It won him a technical Oscar in the late 1990s.
When I was filming particularly the smaller wildlife like spiders and things on the ground, I couldn't keep them in focus. And I thought there's got to be a better way than this. So I went and consulted a CSIRO physicist and he said something about the inverse square of optics and impossible, forget about it. And I went away thinking, what the hell does he know? And I started fiddling, pulling lenses to bits and experimenting with various optics, and I eventually found a way. It puts everything in focus. I filmed David Attenborough with it many times. I was able to develop another simpler form.
As the calls of double-barred finches and satin bowerbirds ring out and the odd peacock struts proudly across his lawn, Jim sits on his veranda sifting through a lifetime of memories for his autobiography. He admits it's a daunting task which he's been working on for months.
I really can't believe what I've done over the years. I have to say I'm bewildered by my own experiences, and I've been going through thousands of photographs and slides to try and get the appropriate photograph to illustrate what I'm talking about. And it's been a massive job. I've been working on it for a couple of months now. Trouble is, at my age, I'm 80 years old now. There's a thing called brain fog, which gets in the road of memory. So I've had to contact a lot of friends and colleagues and they remind me of certain things and they create a trigger which, oh yes, of course, I forgot about that, okay. And I've also written them into the book because a lot of them have been a big part of my life. Come on.
While he does his bit on his property to create a refuge for wildlife, Jim remains committed to spreading a message of conservation.
I get very concerned about what the human race is doing to nature. We're killing it. And for a long time, I've been trying to get a message out there that it doesn't matter if it's a mosquito or a fly, a butterfly or a bird. We need to look after them We rely on every one of those species to help put food on our tables. We need to preserve what's left now on this earth.
And he'll continue immersing himself in his own pocket of nature.
Watching the birds and the butterflies fly around is just wonderful. And it's a place of peace. If there's anywhere I want to die, it'll be here.
80-year-old award-winning wildlife cinematographer and inventor Jim Frazier. He was reflecting on his remarkable life with reporter Emma Siosian. That's the show for today. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to an ABC podcast. You can discover more ABC podcasts, live radio and exclusives on the ABC Listen app.